change your heart, change your life, change the planet. One of the themes that keeps showing up in my research is that of resilience. There's a lot of people talking about how to bounce back from adversity or depression or whatever it is that may ail you. And this is something that I've put a great deal of thought into because, as someone who has a brain that has chosen depression as pretty much a universal strategy, I've had to be very, very careful in how I approach this conversation of resilience with myself, because I find it can be really, really problematic. So I want to break down what resilience is and what I think might be a much better option, or at least a better term, because I think that a lot of these terms are well-meaning and a lot of these ideas are well-meaning, but in the end they tend to hurt people that need help the most. Resilience is really about bouncing back. It's about going back to a place that you know well, that you were comfortable in, that you were strong in, that you really identified with. Like, this was me at my best. And I want to bounce back to that, because the me that I'm experiencing right now in this moment is either physically uncomfortable, psychologically uncomfortable, or a combination of both. Maybe something or several things have been taken away from me, and I just don't feel like myself, and I don't feel like I know how to get through this. I don't feel like the skills that I had are either available to me anymore, or they no longer apply. The situation has changed, and my skill set just is ineffective to handle what I'm going through right now. So the idea of resilience as a bouncing back reminds me of a term that we used to use on set. The director or assistant director would say, "back to one." And that meant we would rewind everybody's position, the cameras, the lights, everything back to the origin of the scene. We're going to do the scene again. And before we do the scene again, we have to go backwards to where everything was set up the first time we filmed that scene. And this is what the mind is looking for in the need for resilience. It's looking to go back to one. It wants to go back home. And it's a compelling idea, because I think it's innate in human psychology to want to go back. But when something has happened to you that has changed you in a way that doesn't allow you to go back to one, or one is now gone and you can never go back to it, your house burnt down, someone you cared about died, you got an illness that required parts of your body to be removed perhaps, you went into a depression and now your brain is physically different, many of your memories may be gone permanently. That's something that I deal with. I don't remember much of my life anymore. Your hippocampus shrinks during depression, especially long bouts of severe depression, and your hippocampus is how you access memories. So there are huge chunks of my life that are empty and blank, no memory whatsoever. So for me, there is no going back, because I don't know what back even is anymore. I don't remember it. And this is where I see depression as a positive, where most would see it as a negative. Because when you're really, really hit hard in life, and there is no going back, because the thing you're going back to is gone, or it's changed in such a way that it's no longer going to support you the way that it used to, in those moments, the healthiest thing to do is to move on. And to not try to go back, but to say, okay, this is the new normal. This is the new me. Let's spend some time exploring, getting to know it, getting to know myself, getting to know the situation, getting to know my capabilities, and learning how to work with them slowly and gently at first until I develop some degree of efficacy. And then maybe I can start to take some bigger steps. But it's like learning to drive all over again. I can't be the person I was, and I can't move as quickly as I moved in the past. So I need to engage in what psychologists call deliberate practice, where I need to really consciously attend to what I'm doing, and also consciously attend to my brain's desire to want to make it like it used to be. It's going to keep coming up. So bouncing back, I think, is a useful metaphor, or the idea of resilience is useful to people that have been hit hard enough to hurt, but not hard enough to really dramatically change them. If you get beat down a little bit, sure, you can bounce back, and bouncing back is probably a good thing. Hopefully you learned a little bit in the beat down, and when you bounce back, you come back with a little bit more than you had before. But when you've been beaten down for a really long period of time, or when you've been beaten to the point where you just can't ever function the same again, then I don't think resilience should be your goal. I think what's far more important is to say, okay, that's gone, that's dead, that's past. This is a new moment, and I'm going to work with it. And it's going to be uncomfortable, and it's going to be slow, but the most effective way for me to move forward from this point is in the midst of a grounded, honest, realistic assessment and usage of what's available to me. And that's going to require me spending a lot of time getting to know what's available to me, and even what me is from this point forward, because me has now changed. So for the people who've been hit so hard that bouncing back is no longer an option, I think a much better word and a much better way to describe this as an active process is to segue. And segue comes from the same root that the Latin salire comes from, which is where resilient comes from. And segue means to follow a new path. It means that which now follows. So you're not trying to go backwards. We got rid of the re part, and now we're just following. We're moving forward, and there's a new now. And it's a segue. It's different. We're not on the same trajectory we were before. We are going to segue, and we're going to accept that. We're going to allow it. We're not going to fight against it. And we're going to slowly get to know it and see what's possible there, to see if those previous results are still available to us. But more importantly, to see if they're still important to us. To see if there's something that is really worth going after at this point. Maybe they only applied to the person we used to be, but we're not that person now. So do they still apply? Maybe it's not just that there's a new path, but there's a new person. And we may want to tune in and find out what this person really, truly wants without all the baggage and expectations of the person we used to be. It's a clean slate. And that's kind of what depression is. It's a clearing of the slate. It's a fresh start, if you're willing and brave enough to take it.